So far this season, Nikola Jokic is flat out having one of the best statistical seasons of all time, which could cement his status into the realm of the greatest who have ever played the game. Jokic is currently averaging 30.9 points, 13 rebounds, and 9.8 assists per game, numbers that have never been put up in NBA history, having Jokic on pace to become just the third player ever to average a triple-double in a season. But if the Denver Nuggets are going to win it all again, they definitely need more than their three-time MVP. Currently, Jokic is averaging a career-high 21 field goal attempts per game, which is well above his previous career high of 18 attempts per game back in the 2021 season. The Joker's minutes have also spiked this year as he's playing 37.2 minutes per contest, up from his previous high of more than 34 minutes per game also back in the 2021 season. While Denver for sure is still a really good offensive team, they still currently own the 6th best offensive rating in the NBA, although that's down from ranking 5th last year and down from ranking 4th when they won the title 2 seasons ago. All in all, it makes total sense for the Nuggets to seek some added help in the form of someone who can create with the ball in his hands, particularly someone who could do that at a really high level, which is why it's not surprising that the Nuggets have reportedly expressed interest or have already had preliminary trade discussions surrounding two-time All-Star guard Zach Lavine. Well, Lavine has been ridiculously underrated the past few years for a lot of reasons, but is once again having an all-star caliber season in Chicago, averaging 22 points, 4.5 rebounds, and 4.2 assists, while shooting an efficient 50% from the field and 43.5% from behind the arc. Overall, Lavine is right in his prime at 29 years old and is an efficient 3-level shot creator who combines 3-point shooting, rim attacking, and off-the-ball scoring together with some complementary playmaking. In fact, he's one of only 4 players so far this season to average at least 21 points and 4 assists on at least 63% true shooting, along with Jokic, Giannis Antetokounmpo, and Domantas Sabonis. Well, for sure, Lavine's huge contract seems to be pretty hard to acquire given the second apron luxury tax threshold that's currently limiting high-spending teams like Denver. And come to think of it, the Nuggets also just let go of an important championship piece in KCP for the same financial reasons. But in this video, let's talk about why trading for Zach Lavine could be very much worth the risk for the Nuggets ownership, and why there's a real path for Lavine to join Nikola Jokic on a potential championship run in Denver this season. So let's get to it. Well, as always, the Denver Nuggets have been one step ahead of everyone else offensively with Nikola Jokic in command, as this season, Denver sports a 125.5 offensive rating when Jokic is on the floor, the best offensive rating in the NBA by a mile. But when Jokic is on the bench, that number drops to 101.1 points per 100 possessions, which would be the worst mark in the entire NBA and is almost 10 points worse than what the 30th ranked offense of the Utah Jazz is producing. Well, sure, when Denver's second-best player Jamal Murray is on the floor with Jokic on the bench, that offensive rating improves slightly to 111.8, but that would still rank just 15th in the entire league. The ultimate kicker, though, comes when Michael Porter Jr. is on the floor without either Jokic or Murray, as in those minutes, Denver's offensive rating drops to a very low 79.1 points per 100 possessions. For some reason, lineups wherein Porter Jr. was supposed to thrive with Jokic and Murray on the bench just haven't been functional, which is why Denver has been forced to go back to staggering more minutes for Jamal Murray as of late. Well, for sure, Denver's starting lineup with Jokic on the floor has never been the problem, which is why a lot of people have been against trading Michael Porter Jr., which I must admit makes sense to a degree. Denver values the offensive spacing he provides the team, and to be fair, MPJ is still a young player who's also having a career year, averaging 18.5 points, 7 rebounds, and almost 3 assists. But at the same time, he's also making a huge $35.8 million this season, and is also about to make $79 million more over the next 2 seasons. And in a situation like this, where the Nuggets are paying their starting lineup that much money, the expectation would be that Jamal Murray and MPJ, the second and third highest scorers in the team, should be able to share the offensive burden during those minutes when Jokic is on the bench. Zach Lavine, though, who's earning just $8 million more than MPJ this season, can certainly share that burden with Jokic, as he's consistently been carrying various weak offensive lineups in Chicago for quite some time now. That is something Denver hoped Jamal Murray and Porter Jr. would become on a consistent basis, but to this point, I believe Zach Lavine would just simply be a better driver of bad lineups when Jokic is on the bench. Looking at it, this season, Denver ranks dead last in the NBA in percentage of shots taken from behind the arc. They also rank 28th in drives per game, and while they still lead the NBA in frequency of shots taken at the rim, mostly because of Jokic's gravity, it would definitely help Denver to have another player who can put pressure on opposing defenses off the dribble in a variety of ways. And Zach Lavine could definitely become that guy for them. First of all, Lavine has always been a high-volume three-point shooter who's capable of creating his own shot from the perimeter. This season, he's attempting 10.6 three-pointers per 100 possessions, while MPJ is attempting 8.1 per 100. And while MPJ's career three-point rate is higher, Lavine still has been the much more accurate shooter this season. But more notably, while Porter Jr. is excellent at relocating and launching shots coming off handoffs, he can't actually create three-point shots off the dribble to the extent Zach Lavine can. Lavine simply has the ball handling craft, the speed, and the acrobatic ability to drain off-balance shots in a way Porter Jr. can't. Also, Lavine is a much more athletic and a much more vertically imposing driver who could consistently put pressure into opposing defenses at the rim. Well, his driving numbers have been down a bit this year as a result of the Chicago Bulls' shift to a new offense with Josh Giddey at the point, but over the past 2 seasons, Lavine has actually averaged 10.2 drives per game while shooting 54% on shots coming off drives, which ranked in the 90th and the 85th percentile of the NBA among all players who have attempted at least 5 drives per game over the past 2 seasons. Though one mistake the Chicago Bulls had with Lavine is miscasting him as a first option. While he's played that primary role before DeMar DeRozan's arrival and has had decent results, but Lavine was obviously never supposed to be the primary guy on a winning team. If any, he's actually looked more productive when playing a complementary scorer type of role, as since he entered his prime in Chicago, Lavine had actually developed into a devastatingly efficient scorer off the ball. Back in the 2021 season, even when he was still Chicago's primary option, Lavine shot 48.6% out of catch-and-shoot threes, which was the 7th best mark in the NBA back then. And every season since until now, Lavine has continued to shoot above 40% on catch-and-shoot threes, with the exception of last season when he only played 25 games and didn't take enough shots. Also, back in the 2021 season, again as Chicago's primary option, Lavine actually ranked in the 97th percentile of the NBA in terms of scoring efficiency out of cuts to the basket, and every season since, while mostly playing alongside DeMar DeRozan, he's produced above league average numbers as a cutter, again with the exception of last season when he only played 25 games because of injury. And what's actually intriguing about Lavine displaying such high-level efficiency off the ball is that, in Chicago, he's never even played alongside an elite playmaker who also happens to be a number 1 option, with all due respect to DeMar DeRozan. In Denver, though, Lavine would be able to play with that elite playmaking first option in Nikola Jokic, and you can just imagine him walking into the most efficient 20 to 25 point games of his career by simply playing off Jokic's gravity on the floor. With Jokic consistently drawing double teams, Lavine would be an easy passing target whether he spots up from behind the arc or cuts to the basket. Plus, with Lavine's own ability to bend defenses with his perimeter shot making as well as his rim pressure, he would just open up even more shots for Jokic, who's having a career year from behind the arc, as well as Jamal Murray, who's having a relatively down year from the three-point line. I also love how Lavine would fit into Denver's new up-tempo playstyle. After being one of the slowest teams in the NBA the past few seasons, the Nuggets have utilized Nikola Jokic's outlet passing and ability to run in early offense even more, by being the 6th most transition-heavy team in the league this season, while also recording the most efficient field goal percentage out of shots in transition. And adding a quick and athletic lob finisher like Zach Lavine, who's consistently ranked at least above the 70th percentile of the NBA in terms of transition scoring over the past 5 seasons, should just help Denver build around that quicker offense even more. But then, one issue you'll keep on hearing when talking about a Zach Lavine trade to Denver is the potential risk on the defensive end. While contenders don't usually want to get smaller ahead of a playoff run, and that has been the main concern in terms of an MPJ and Zach Lavine swap, as Michael Porter Jr. is 5 inches taller than Lavine, and a Zach Lavine and Jamal Murray backcourt is also somewhat considered weak defensively. Well, it's not always easy to quantify defense statistically, but this season, the defensive estimated plus-minus metric, one of the most commonly used advanced tools to measure defensive impact, actually ranks Lavine in the 16th percentile of the NBA defensively, compared to MPJ, who's ranked way below in the 6th percentile of the league. Lavine might not be a lockdown defender, but has definitely shown willingness to be disruptive on that end of the floor the past few seasons. Lavine should also find it easier to exert more effort on the defensive end when placed in a winning situation where his offensive role isn't too taxing. Whatever the case may be, I think one potential upside of a Zach Lavine trade to Denver is that it should also allow Peyton Watson to have an even more profound role with the team as a long, athletic, switchable defender who, when you pair with Aaron Gordon on the frontcourt, just might allow a Jokic, Jamal Murray, and Zach Lavine trio to work. Having Zach Lavine might even potentially open up a starting role for Peyton Watson at the small forward spot. Watson's lack of offense also becomes less problematic, with Zach Lavine providing more shot creation than Porter Jr. ever could. And if Watson happens to start, that should mean Christian Braun comes off the bench once again, and having an efficient 15-point scorer coming off the bench with Russell Westbrook should just really help elevate the Nuggets' depth. Well, looking at a potential deal, Zach Lavine is making $43 million this season, meaning the Nuggets would have to send out at least that much to Chicago for a legal trade to happen, with both Jamal Murray and Aaron Gordon unable to be traded with them just having signed brand new extensions. It is obvious that Porter Jr., who earns $35.8 million this season, would have to be the baseline for any deal to make sense. MPJ is also still very young, who might even develop into a borderline star-level player given the right environment, and whose skill set as a big shooting forward and a solid rebounder actually complements Patrick Williams and Nikola Vucevic in the Bulls' frontcourt. After MPJ, packaging big man Zeke Nnaji's contract gets Denver right at the threshold to match Lavine's salary, but for sure, Chicago wouldn't want to take on Nnaji's contract, as he's still owed around $23 million over the next 3 seasons, despite being one of the worst players in the league analytically. Overall, it would be understandable if Chicago doesn't want to let go of Lavine in exchange for a lesser player in MPJ, as well as an overpaid bench player in Zeke Nnaji. But this also might all boil down to how desperate the Bulls are in terms of keeping their lottery pick next year. Cause looking at it, the Bulls' 2025 first round pick goes to San Antonio unless that pick lands in the top 10. And so far, Chicago ranks exactly 10th in the lottery standings, meaning they're on the verge of losing their lottery pick in a rebuilding year when they need that pick the most. The Bulls obviously need to be bad, and trading Lavine in the middle of an all-star caliber season could actually do the trick for them. Luckily for Chicago, Denver is one of only a few teams who might be a good fit for Lavine, and who at the same time could also be desperate enough to acquire his $43 million salary this season, as well as the remaining $94.8 million he'll make until the 2027 season. This is because the Denver Nuggets know that in Nikola Jokic, they have an all-time top 10 player in the making, and they probably also know that in order for them to maximize his prime and to increase their chances of winning another championship with him now, trading for someone like Zach Lavine might be one of those moves they have to make despite the potential risks that come with it. But do you guys actually think that Nikola Jokic actually needs someone like Zach Lavine to win another championship? Feel free to drop your thoughts in the comment section below, and again, if you're new to the channel, please consider subscribing as well. Again, this has been Real Balls, and I'll see you on the next one. Peace.